"You mean to tell me," Felix began, their crystalline edges shimmering faintly as they spoke, "that humans, a species infamous for their propensity to set things on fire, also willingly run toward them?" Captain Alex Monroe adjusted his uniform, the slightest smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "That's exactly what I'm saying." The Galactic Council erupted into laughter. It wasn't the polite kind, the type reserved for amusing but plausible anecdotes about a species' quirks. No, this was the kind of laughter that said, "These humans have outdone themselves in the department of absurdity." "Preposterous," Jarnock, the molten-scaled Clivorn, growled, his voice reverberating through the chamber. "Who risks their lives without substantial compensation? It defies every principle of self-preservation." "Exactly," Alex replied, raising a finger as if proving a point. "It's not about self-preservation. It's about helping others." The laughter stopped. Helping? Zyla Rinth, the Assyrian delegate with glowing blue tentacles, tilted her translucent head, her bioluminescent appendages dimming slightly. What could possibly motivate such illogical behavior? Alex leaned back, sipping from his thermos with theatrical nonchalance. Altruism. The chamber buzzed with murmurs as the delegates mulled over this alien concept. Altruism was not a foreign word to them. It just wasn't particularly practical. "Humans are a species of contradictions," Felix said, turning toward Alex. "Your history is riddled with wars, your inventions with flaws, and your decision-making processes, questionable at best. And yet, you claim to act without self-interest?" "Not always," Alex admitted, grinning. "Sometimes we do it because it's fun. Running into a fire is fun." Jarnock's molten scales flared dangerously, his claws gripping the edge of his console. "Your species is beyond reckless." Alex shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe we just have a different definition of bravery." The debate was interrupted by the flashing of an emergency beacon. A hologram flickered to life in the center of the chamber, displaying the Assyrian colony of Lerna. The planet's lush, oceanic surface was marred by towering plumes of smoke and flames consuming the sprawling settlement. "Our suppression drones have failed," Zyla cried, her glowing tentacles flaring brightly. "The colony is lost." "What about evacuation protocols?" Felix asked sharply. "Our ships are overwhelmed," Zyla replied. "There's no way to contain the damage." Alex leaned forward, his smirk fading. "How long do you have?" "Hours," Zyla said. "Perhaps less." Without a word, Alex tapped a series of commands into his comm unit. "Good thing I called in a team." Felix's crystalline facets dimmed in confusion. "A team?" Alex smiled faintly. "You'll see." "What in the name of all things logical is that?" Felix's crystalline form pulsed faintly, their golden edges glowing brighter in alarm as the hologram updated. A small, unassuming human spacecraft appeared on the screen, descending rapidly toward the blazing Assyrian colony of Lerna. "That," Alex said, leaning back in his chair with his usual smug grin, "is Engine 42. They're the best volunteer firefighters this side of the Milky Way." "They're not even a military vessel," Jarnock growled, his molten scales flaring in disbelief. "How do you expect that tiny ship to handle a disaster of this magnitude?" "With hoses, teamwork, and a concerning amount of duct tape," Alex replied, sipping from his thermos. Duct tape. Felix's edges dimmed, as if their crystalline brain needed a reboot. "This is a planetary inferno, not a malfunctioning airlock." "Relax," Alex said, waving a hand. "They've got this." The hologram zoomed in on Engine 42 as it landed near the edge of the fire. The rear hatch opened, and a crew of humans in bright yellow fire-resistant suits emerged, their movements calm and precise despite the chaos surrounding them. Leading the team was Captain Jamie Torres, a broad-shouldered man in his 40s with a thick beard and a voice that could cut through the roar of flames. "All right, people," Torres barked into his comm. "We've got civilians to save and a fire to contain. Stay sharp and keep moving." The crew fanned out, deploying hoses and portable suppression tanks. One firefighter, a wiry woman named Claire, climbed atop a precarious structure to secure a line, her bright helmet bobbing in the smoke. "They're walking into the fire," Zyla exclaimed, her glowing tentacles curling in panic. "Do they not value their lives?" Alex grinned, crossing his arms. "That's kind of the point." "Valve's stuck again," one firefighter shouted, fumbling with a hose. "Give it the usual," Torres called back. The firefighter promptly smacked the valve with a wrench, and it hissed to life, spraying water with enough force to knock him back a step. Valix blinked, their golden facets refracting light. Did he just hit it? "Sometimes you've got to show the equipment who's boss," Alex said, grinning. Another firefighter, a lanky man named Eric, duct-taped a broken suppression line mid-rescue. "This should hold," he shouted over the comms. "Duct tape," Jarnock muttered, his molten scales dimming. "Your species relies on adhesive strips during planetary disasters." "Works every time," Alex replied, sipping from his thermos. Despite the aliens' skepticism, the firefighters' methods began to show results. Civilians were evacuated from danger zones, containment lines were established, and the flames began to recede. The team moved with practiced efficiency, their trust in each other apparent. One moment caught the council's attention. A firefighter carried a glowing Osirian civilian on his back, navigating through thick smoke and collapsing debris. The hologram zoomed in as the firefighter emerged, coughing but unharmed, and handed the civilian off to a medical team. "They are effective," Valix admitted reluctantly, their golden facets shimmering faintly. "They're heroes," Alex corrected, his voice uncharacteristically serious. "And they do it because they want to, not because they have to." As the last flames were extinguished, cheers erupted from the rescued civilians. The council chamber fell silent, watching as the firefighters gathered in the clearing, their yellow suits stained with soot and their faces marked with exhaustion, but also pride. "You have made your point, Captain Monroe," Valix said, their voice tinged with respect. "Human volunteerism is extraordinary." "Welcome to Earth's craziest idea," Alex said, raising his thermos like a toast. "This concept of yours, volunteerism, is simultaneously admirable and baffling," Valix stated, their crystalline edges shimmering faintly as they turned toward Alex. "But the question remains, could such a system truly work across the Federation?" Alex leaned back in his chair, casually swirling his thermos as though it held all the answers to the universe. "You saw it for yourself. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best." Jarnock growled lowly, his molten gold scales flickering. "Your solution is reckless. Sending civilians into life-threatening situations is no way to maintain order." "That's where training comes in," Alex replied, his grin widening. "And, you know, a little thing called bravery." "Bravery or insanity?" Zyla Rinth muttered, her glowing tentacles curling in thought. "Perhaps they are the same in humans." Despite their skepticism, the Council approved a trial workshop to test the viability of volunteer firefighting across species. The holographic training room was filled with recruits from various Federation worlds, their expressions ranging from excitement to outright dread. At the front stood Captain Jamie Torres, still in his soot-streaked uniform, holding a clipboard and looking mildly amused. "All right, folks," he began, his voice booming across the room. "You're here to learn how to save lives and kick fire's butt. Let's get to it." The recruits exchanged nervous glances. A Zixorian with multiple spindly arms raised a hand. "Excuse me, human. What qualifications are required for this madness?" Torres grinned. "A willingness to learn, a bit of grit, and the ability to not panic when things go sideways." The Zixorian's appendages drooped. "This seems unlikely." The first few hours of training were, to put it kindly, a disaster. Jarnock, towering over the others, accidentally snapped a hose nozzle with his claws and growled, "This equipment is fragile." A young Osirian volunteer tangled themselves in their glowing tentacles while trying to secure a water line. "How do you manage these primitive tools?" they wailed, wriggling helplessly. "Duct tape fixes everything," shouted a human instructor, tossing a roll across the room. "I don't believe this," Felix muttered, watching the chaos unfold from the observation deck. "Give it time," Alex said, his grin as unshakable as ever. "We humans like to learn the hard way." By the end of the first week, the volunteers began to show improvement. Jarnock mastered the art of operating a suppression hose without snapping it, while the Assyrian recruit successfully secured a containment line without tangling themselves. "Not bad for a bunch of first-timers," Torres remarked, watching the recruits navigate a simulated fire. "Still need to work on speed, though." Zyla tilted her head toward Alex. "Your people's methods are unorthodox. Yet, there is a certain logic to this madness." "It's not about the tools," Alex said. "It's about the people using them." Just as the workshop reached its final stages, a new emergency arose. A Federation cargo ship carrying volatile materials suffered a containment breach, threatening to detonate in a densely populated sector. The automated systems aboard the ship failed, leaving thousands at risk. Felix turned to Alex, their golden facets glowing brighter in alarm. "Your volunteers, are they prepared for a real disaster?" Alex's grin faded, replaced by a calm, steely resolve. "They'll be ready." "They'll be ready," Alex repeated, but this time his voice carried the weight of certainty. On the holographic display, the Federation cargo ship Talion floated precariously near the edge of a bustling spaceport. Smoke poured from the vessel, and warning lights blinked wildly across its hull. The containment breach threatened to engulf the ship in an explosion that could destroy half the sector. Felix, their crystalline form pulsing faintly with unease, turned to Captain Torres. "Your trainees. This mission is far beyond their capabilities." Torres adjusted his helmet, his expression as calm as ever. "They've been trained for this. If we wait for drones or military reinforcements, we'll lose lives. The volunteers are the best shot we've got." "Madness," Jarnock growled, his molten gold scales glowing brighter. "This entire scheme is madness." "Yeah," Alex said, strapping on a comm headset. "But it's our kind of madness." Engine 42's rescue vessel docked alongside the Talion with practiced precision. The newly trained team of volunteers disembarked, their mixed-species composition a stark contrast to the usual human crews. Torres stood at the front, issuing commands with practiced ease. "All right, folks, here's the deal," he barked. "Fire suppression teams, focus on containing the spread. Evac teams, get those civilians off the ship. And someone keep an eye on the containment unit. It's got enough volatile material to light up a star system." The team sprang into action. Jarnock led the charge with a suppression hose, his massive strength proving invaluable as he kept the flames at bay. An Osirian volunteer, their glowing tentacles deftly maneuvering through tight corridors, guided panicked civilians toward the evacuation shuttles. "Valves jammed again," a human firefighter called out, his voice strained as he wrestled with a malfunctioning waterline. "Hit it with something," Torres shouted back. The firefighter immediately slammed the valve with a wrench. It hissed, groaned, and then roared to life, spraying water in every direction, including all over Jarnock. The towering Clivorn growled, molten eyes narrowing as he shook off the water. "Is this part of the training?" "Nope," the firefighter replied, grinning. "Just part of the job." Meanwhile, a Zixorian volunteer, their spindly arms juggling 3 tools at once, duct-taped a critical containment seal with an impressive amount of finesse. "Primitive solutions," they muttered, "but undeniably effective." As the volunteers worked tirelessly, the ship's main containment unit began to destabilize. Warning klaxons echoed through the corridors, and the holographic display in the council chamber flashed ominously. "We're out of time," Felix said, their golden facets dimming in alarm. "The containment unit will breach within minutes." Alex, watching the scene unfold, leaned forward. "They've got this." On board the Talion, Captain Torres coordinated the final stages of the operation. "Evac team, report." "All civilians clear," came the reply. "Suppression team?" "Flames contained, but the breach is critical." Torres nodded, his jaw set. "All right, final push, people. Let's stabilize that unit." In the containment room, the temperature was nearly unbearable. A mix of human and alien volunteers worked side by side, rerouting power and patching critical systems. Jarnock, his molten strength proving essential, held a buckling support beam in place while the Osirian volunteer sealed a key junction. 30 seconds, Torres shouted. Move it. Claire, the wiry firefighter with a knack for improvisation, slammed a panel shut and secured it with, you guessed it, duct tape. That should hold. The containment unit groaned, hissed, and finally stabilized with a loud clang. The volunteers let out collective sighs of relief as the warning klaxons fell silent. Back in the council chamber, the delegates watched as the volunteers regrouped on the ship's bridge, their suits stained with soot, but their spirits high. Civilians cheered as they were safely evacuated, and the ship's remaining crew offered heartfelt thanks. They did it, Velix murmured, their golden facets glowing brighter. They actually did it. Of course they did, Alex said, his grin returning. That's what volunteers do. Jarnock growled lowly, his molten eyes narrowing. I still believe your methods are reckless, but I cannot deny their effectiveness. Alex raised his thermos in a mock toast. To recklessness, then. This changes everything, Velix said, their crystalline facets glowing brighter than ever. The council chamber buzzed with excitement and disbelief as footage of the Talion rescue played on repeat, showing volunteers of multiple species working in perfect unison. The Federation has never seen such cooperation, such bravery. Or duct tape, Jarnock muttered, his molten scales dimming slightly as he glanced at Alex. Your species appears to have an unnatural reliance on adhesives. Alex grinned, leaning back in his chair. If it works, it works. The Osirian delegate, Zyla Rinth, rippled with glowing admiration as she addressed the council. We must consider implementing this system across the Federation. The concept of volunteerism, though unorthodox, has proven its value. But at what cost? Jarnock growled. Humans thrive on chaos, but other species may not adapt so easily. We cannot expect the same results. Alex raised an eyebrow, his grin softening into something more serious. Maybe that's the problem. You all think it's about adapting to chaos, but it's not. It's about preparing for it. The Federation quickly approved an expansion of the volunteer program, with Earth taking the lead in training initiatives. Across the galaxy, training centers were established, and seasoned human firefighters like Captain Torres were dispatched to mentor alien recruits. One such training center was located on Veltranix Prime, where Velix personally observed the first batch of Federation volunteers tackling simulated emergencies. It was chaos, of course. Hoses tangled, equipment malfunctioned, and a particularly overzealous Zaxorian accidentally sprayed foam across the entire training facility. They're learning, Torres assured Velix, his tone calm but confident. You should have seen my first day. Let's just say the fire department never lets me live it down. Velix's golden facets shimmered faintly, their version of a smile. It appears your methods inspire resilience. Resilience and a sense of humor, Torres replied, smirking as a Grixlian slipped on a patch of foam. Both are critical. As the Federation's volunteer system began to gain traction, a new and unexpected problem arose: cultural resistance. Some species, like the Clivorns, struggled with the idea of risking their lives without tangible compensation. Others, like the Osirians, found the concept of teamwork difficult to grasp due to their highly individualistic nature. Velix approached Alex one evening, their crystalline glow dimmed with concern. Captain Monroe, I fear we may have underestimated the challenges of implementing this system. Not all species share humanity's peculiar mindset. That's the beauty of it, Alex replied, his voice softer than usual. Volunteerism isn't about being human. It's about stepping up because you can, not because you have to. Give them time. They'll get there. The real twist came during a routine debriefing at the council chamber. Velix presented data showing that the introduction of volunteer programs had led to unexpected benefits: increased interspecies cooperation, higher morale among Federation members, and even a drop in crime rates on worlds with active programs. Volunteerism fosters community bonds, Velix explained, their facets glowing with pride. It appears humanity's chaotic altruism is contagious. Alex grinned, leaning forward. Told you. However, not everyone was pleased. Jarnock's molten scales flickered angrily as he growled. And what happens when this fragile system fails? When your duct tape cannot hold? Then we fix it, Alex replied simply. That's what we do. Despite the success of the programs, tensions began to rise within the council. Some species questioned the long-term viability of relying on volunteers, while others embraced the system wholeheartedly. Alex found himself in the middle of heated debates, defending humanity's approach with equal parts wit and determination. It's not about perfection, Alex argued during one particularly fiery session. It's about trying, about stepping up when no one else will, and if that makes us reckless, then so be it. Velix, standing beside him, nodded in agreement. Recklessness may not be a flaw but a strength. Perhaps it is what the Federation needs most. Enough! Jarnock's voice roared through the chamber, his molten gold scales flaring dangerously. This so-called volunteerism has gone too far. It defies logic, order, and everything the Federation was built upon. Velix, standing beside Alex with their crystalline form shimmering faintly, countered with a calm but firm tone. And yet, it has succeeded where your drones and automated systems have failed. The volunteers saved countless lives, not just during the Talion crisis, but across the galaxy. The council chamber was divided. On one side, supporters of humanity's methods argued passionately for the expansion of the volunteer system. On the other, skeptics like Jarnock denounced it as unsustainable and reckless. Alex leaned forward, his sharp brown eyes locking onto Jarnock. This isn't about systems or logic. It's about people stepping up when it matters most. That's something no machine will ever replace. Jarnock growled lowly, his molten eyes narrowing. And when those people fail, when their recklessness leads to catastrophe, they learn, Alex replied evenly. And they get better. That's what makes us human, and maybe it's something the Federation could learn too. Before the debate could continue, an urgent transmission interrupted the proceedings. A Federation ship had gone silent near the Zixorian Nebula, an area notorious for its volatile energy storms. The vessel carried a critical supply of medical resources destined for a planet in the midst of a plague outbreak. The storms have disabled all automated systems, the transmission explained. A manual rescue mission is the only option. Jarnock turned to Alex, his molten form radiating heat. Here is your chance, human. Let us see if your precious volunteers can handle this. Alex didn't hesitate. Challenge accepted. Engine 42 was dispatched to the Zixorian Nebula, carrying a mixed crew of seasoned human firefighters and newly trained alien volunteers. The ship navigated through the storm with difficulty, its hull rattling under the intense energy surges. Torres stood at the helm, barking orders with his usual confidence. Keep it steady, and someone make sure those containment lines are secured. If we lose pressure, we're toast. The team worked tirelessly, their differences fading as they united under the pressure of the mission. Jarnock, who had reluctantly joined the crew as an observer, found himself stepping in to hold a collapsing bulkhead, while a Grixlian volunteer reinforced the structure. Is this normal? Jarnock growled as sparks flew around him. Normal's overrated, Torres replied with a grin. Welcome to the job. The rescue mission pushed the volunteers to their limits. With time running out, the team managed to stabilize the stranded vessel and transfer the medical supplies. But as they prepared to leave, an energy surge disabled their own ship's navigation systems. We're stuck, Torres announced grimly. Alex, monitoring the mission from the council chamber, leaned forward in his seat. They'll figure it out, he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. They must, Velix said softly, their crystalline form dimming with concern. Against all odds, the volunteers improvised a solution. Claire, the wiry human firefighter with a knack for duct tape, rigged a makeshift power bypass, while Jarnock used his immense strength to manually operate a critical system. The ship lurched forward, escaping the storm just as the energy field collapsed behind them. Cheers erupted both aboard the ship and in the council chamber as the volunteers returned, weary but triumphant. The success of the mission marked a turning point. The council, inspired by the volunteers' bravery and ingenuity, voted unanimously to adopt a galaxy-wide volunteer system, with Earth leading the initiative. At a ceremony honoring the team, Jarnock approached Alex, his molten form glowing faintly. "Your people may be reckless, human," he admitted grudgingly, "but perhaps that is what the galaxy needs." Alex grinned, raising his thermos. "I'll take that as a compliment." Velix stepped forward, addressing the assembled delegates. "Today, we witness the power of unity. Let us not forget that it was humanity's example that led us here. Their willingness to risk everything for the sake of others has redefined what it means to be part of the Federation." As the council dispersed, Alex stood alone on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. Velix approached, their crystalline edges glowing softly. "You seem contemplative," Velix said. Alex chuckled. "Just wondering what's next. Humans have a habit of setting the bar high and then immediately finding a way to raise it." Velix tilted their head. "Perhaps that is humanity's greatest gift, the ability to inspire others to do the impossible." Alex raised his thermos in a quiet toast to the stars. "Here's to the impossible,